Hi, I'm Dave Bahr, head of the School of Materials Engineering. Welcome to my office hours. Come on in.
We haven't actually introduced ourselves. My name's Nachi.
Hi, Dave Bahr.
Nice to meet you. I'm a senior in Aero, so I'm kind of like your neighbor in a way, I
Okay.
guess. But yeah, I wanted to start off with something pretty easy, simple. Okay. You've been the head of the MSE department for a while, and I just wanted to know, was that something that you thought about as an undergrad at Purdue?
Never. When I was an undergrad, I never thought, I started as an undergrad thinking I would go work in industry, that I would get my degree, I'd get these nice internships, I wouldn't have to paint houses in the summer anymore, and interned at Ameco Research Center up in Chicago. And all the people that had cool jobs had graduate degrees. So, okay, maybe I'll stay and get my master's. And doing that, I said, research is kind of cool. Maybe I should go get a PhD. But I'd been at Purdue for 5 years, wanted to leave town. So went up to Minnesota. And then I thought, no, I could be a professor. This could be good. So I did not set out as an undergrad to think, my dream is to come back and be department head of the department that I got my degree in. That if you had asked me to do odds, that would not have shown up on the list.
In that case, then what's kept you in it so long?
Being a department head lets me make a bigger impact, but still lets me be a materials person.
What kind of coffee do you like?
Black.
Fair enough. Is it like a specific roast? Do you mind what kind of roast it is?
No, just generally dark, and I'm not a coffee snob, but I'm snobby enough we have a grinder in the department. We do grind our own beans, but we buy bulk beans at Costco. We've done a bunch of tests, and but we are cost conscious.
Do you get the jitters at all though? Coffee jitters?
If I stop.
The withdrawal symptoms, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but 8 to 10 cups a day has not done any problem with.
That's a lot of caffeine.
That's what we call Wednesday.
You mentioned cost efficient while you were talking about that. Now I want to touch on that because I heard you used to have a car that you sold to someone else at Purdue, right? So could you tell me more about that?
I think in general that you should own a car as long as you would have a child, right? So at 18, they might want to leave home. When your car can drink, then it's probably okay for it to leave.
The window, right?
Lots of things. The window doesn't work. The battery connectors sporadically needed to be reattached. The big problem was the transmission. If you drove it for more than 3 hours at highway speed, the transmission would start to leak. Just a little bit, so you always had to have transmission fluid in the car. So it still works fine around town. I sold it to somebody else in the department for $50, so he knew what he was getting.
I'm sure you drive to campus. How do you get around on campus? Like, do you walk places? Like, do you...
Do you
longboard?
No, I do not longboard. I'm in shape if round is a shape. Right, a bike is the easiest way to get around. So the bike I have on campus is like from the early 60s. The brakes don't work quite right after a while, and so you got to spin a few times. And so that's the bike that I had when I was a student here as an undergrad.
In the early 90s?
In the late 80s and early 90s. I had like fancy bike, but that was my get around school bike. But it's also the bike that my dad had when he was a student here.
Oh, that's actually cool.
And so when he was a student here in the 60s, that was his bike. And then when I became a student here, I needed a spare bike that was, not a beater, but hefty and sturdy enough to
live
up to
40 years.
Yeah.
Might as well.
So the bike came up with me as a student, and now the bike is back with me as a professor, and it stays on campus.
Did you write a cookbook when you were in college?
I did.
What was it about?
It was the college student's cookbook. One of the
ramen?
No, it did have a recipe for pizza that was 7 blanks. Fill in favorite number, right? Call, order pizza.
Oh, gotcha.
And then there was a section, meals to impress your date, which my then girlfriend, current wife, said never actually worked. So that was like not truth in advertising. And each section had one of the most important things was how many pots and pans did you need to be clean to cook the meal? Because when I was a student, that was like, I'm not doing his dishes. So it was like, no, there's only a fry pan. I'm only cooking with that because that's the only clean thing. So yes, I wrote a cookbook.
There's something about how you visit Prophetstown typically, right?
We like the outdoors, right? And so when we moved back to the Midwest from Washington State, people go, you have to go to the farm. So they have like a recreation of a 1920s farmstead. And the boys like being able to go pick up eggs and do chores in the farm. And it was definitely a fun sort of experience to get to see, like, oh yeah, they grow their own food, and they were doing farm to table dinners. So the chef that was running at the time is somebody that we became friends with. And so the farm is kind of a nice experience, and it's good for the kids to realize, like, yeah, eggs come from chickens, not the grocery store. It's a little like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Did you ever see this?
It's
No?
from my generation, I know, but
Okay. I regularly tell people in class, like, you're going to get pop culture references from before you were born. And so I give YouTube assignments, like, you should go see this. Kids in the Hall sketches.
That's
Go
awesome.
mad with a moderate amount of power. So you should know your Canadian sketch comedy.
Very niche interest for sure.
It lets students know that I'm a human being, which is, an important part, because I remember thinking professors were professors. Like, what did they do? They didn't do anything afterwards. All they did was come to class. No, everybody has work-life balance.
Family.
And I think people now understand work-life balance exists, right? I think maybe in the 80s and 90s that wasn't as polite. It was a sign of weakness to show that you thought about it that way. But now I think it's a lot more culturally acceptable, and I think that's good for all of us. I think it breeds a broader range, and it says we want more people to be a part of this. Right? You don't have to do it just my way. It's the other thing I always tell students, right? My job is not to turn you into me. My job is to help you figure out what you want to do and be able to be good at doing it. And I don't care what you want to do, but I care that you know what you want to do.